Hey guys, I'm Theory Chum, and this is Chum. What if I told you that Five Nights at Freddy's was based off a CIA experiment done in cahoots with a team of parapsychologists? You'd probably roll your eyes, shake your head, and say, oh no, not another Freddy Nazi theory. But slow down, we're not here to talk about Nazis today. Out here in the ocean today, we got a few baits for us. The first one's going to be the 1:35 a.m. epilogue, Fetch from the titular story Fetch, and FNAF 4 from the gameplay itself. First up is the 1:35 a.m. epilogue. We're following along with Phineas Taggart, an experienced parapsychologist who has spent decades studying the energy we call agony. Phineas talks with two workers at the factory, one's named Dawn and the other one's Frank. And Dawn teases him over his beliefs, asking him to repeat what he believes about this energy to Frank. Taggart recollects an experiment done by his colleague, where the participants went under a stare experiment, trying to create a mental shield of light to counteract incoming energy made by others while staring under them from a distance. Later in the epilogue, Taggart receives a shipment from delivery driver Flynn. After this, we get narration over what Taggart is using to measure this energy over EDA. It starts with, like Broad. Remember that colleague previously mentioned? The one who did the stare experiment that Taggart was speaking of? His name is William Broad. He worked at the Mind Science Foundation while he did these experiments. These experiments, commonly referred to as remote viewing or distant viewing, were actually pioneered in the USA by William Broad. Now we're picking up the next piece of shark bait, the story Fetch, where Greg studies both REG and ZPF. REG is random event generators, generating numbers or a green light based off electric randomization, where people attempted to guess what the numbers that would be or the light would come on that would pop up on the machine. Trying to find a connection between psionic energy and the attunements of time. In this instance, they were looking at future sight. Another name for REG is RNG, which is a random number generator. Greg also studies the zero-point field, which is the ZPF that we're looking at. It's a belief that even inside of a vacuum, there's a sea of energy that exists that has even the most basic forms of energy inside of it. These studies were both studies done by Helmut Schmidt. Helmut Schmidt also studied the observer effect, which was referred to in one of the FNAF 2 movie scripts, but we're going to come back to that point in a moment. Next out here floating with us is FNAF 4. In FNAF 4, we see the crying child going through traumatizing moments, being left to feel alone to the point where he's needed to be comforted by the Golden Fred plush, making him know he's not alone and convincing him that he's strong enough to do what he needs to do. Now we take a look at Marilyn Schlitz, who did the ironically named Calm experiment and discussed it on the Thinking Aloud program with Jeffrey Mishlove, where she describes this experiment as taking people who are already susceptible to loneliness and making them feel even more lonely and stress, isolating them even from outside sensory interaction, then introducing a shaman-like figure to reassure and comfort the subject, then measuring their electrodermal activity, just like what Taggart measured in the 1:35 a.m. epilogue, in their moment of calming. This is actually reflected in FNAF 4 in the Fredbear plush. What do these three parapsychologists have in common? They all work closely together in the Mind Science Foundation. But not only do you have to take my word for it, or the internet, Marilyn Schlitz confirmed it for me herself. So now that we have the foundation, what's their importance in the series Five Nights at Freddy's? They worked with the CIA doing studies into the psionic power of the mind, otherwise called psychokinesis. These experiments were covert at the time, ranging from the 1960s to the 1980s, and took place all around the USA. Remember how I said we would come back to that FNAF 2 movie script? Let's look at the other notable reference here. Energy vortexes. Energy vortexes are believed natural sites of gathered spiritual, emotional, or natural energy. The one that stands out for us is the Bowl, the believed energy vortex outside of St. Georgetown, Utah. Why does it stand out for us? Well, it's the very source of the information in the script. The U.S. military, who also in this script confirms that Fazbear Entertainment is more than just an entertainment business, is part of the CIA who did experiments all around the bowl. And one of those experiments is the entire basis for FNAF. Before I get to that experiment, I want to make an honorable notion about this information about the bowl, as Hurricane Utah also sits right outside of it. So that's the location of the Silver Eyes trilogy. So what is this nifty little experiment? Operation Gateway, also known as the Gateway process. This experiment focused on adjusting the subject's adjustment to incoming stimulation of a course of up to 5 controlled sessions. Exactly like the 5 nights of 6-hour shifts that we are taking place in the main part of the games. And as we play the games, our adjustment to the incoming stimuli is being increased. And what exactly was the CIA and the Mind Science Foundation trying to achieve? That, my little school of Bruces, is a story for another video. Thank you all for joining me, and I want to give a little insight to my plans for the future of the channel. I plan to release on Mondays, but as work requires, I may be a day or two late, as I'm trying to fit in writing scripts and do all the editing and everything. My next videos, next Monday, I plan on having out a revamp for my Science of Agony with a whole lot of new information I've received over the last 4 to 5 months. In that video, I'm also going to be responding to Rytoast, responding to one of my emails. He doesn't know it yet. Probably never will. After that, I plan on doing a video into FNAF 6 and Andrew. And in that video, I'm going to be connecting and factually proving She's So Nervous's Remnantplex theory, and also giving my own interpretation into Narrow Raven's 14 theory, as I can see a lot of what he's working with, but we do have a fork in the road that we're going to talk about in that video. After that, I'm going to be working on kind of like a rap in the style of Dan Bull, where I'm going to try to explain the science of agony using that rap music. I really appreciate you guys coming out and swimming in the ocean with me. If you liked what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you really want to see the rest of the upcoming series, swim your finger on over to that subscribe button and let me know what you think in the comments. I always, as always, ask questions. I'd love to interact and answer them. Thank you guys so much for swimming in the ocean.